I know that I know nothing." These were the words of Socrates, the great philosopher of Athens, who spent his life questioning the very foundations of human understanding. Today we ask a question that has troubled minds for centuries. Is love a weakness, or is it the highest form of wisdom? Let us imagine Socrates walking through the streets of Athens, where a young disciple approaches him and asks, "Master, I have heard many say that love makes one vulnerable, that it blinds reason and weakens the soul. Others claim it is the key to truth and wisdom. What do you say?" Socrates, in his usual manner, does not answer directly, but responds with another question. "Tell me, my young friend, what do you understand by love?" The student, hesitant, replies, "It is a deep affection for another, an overwhelming force that makes a man irrational." Socrates smiles and leads the student to a quiet place under the shade of a great olive tree and speaks. "Love, my dear student, is not merely desire, nor is it blind passion. To understand love, one must look beyond the flesh, beyond emotions, beyond possession. Tell me, what do all men seek?" The student thinks and answers, "Happiness." "And what brings happiness?" Socrates presses further. "Wisdom." The student responds, recalling what he has learned, "And what leads to wisdom?" After a long pause, the student hesitantly whispers, "Love." Socrates nods approvingly. Yes, love in its truest form is not a weakness, but a path to enlightenment. If love is merely desire, it enslaves. But if love is the pursuit of the good, the true, and the beautiful, then it is wisdom itself. Plato, my beloved disciple, would later call this the love of wisdom, Philosophia. The student listens intently. "You see," Socrates continues, "there are two kinds of love, the love of the body, which fades, and the love of the soul, which elevates. The first traps a man in fleeting pleasures, the second leads him to the divine. If one loves rightly, one seeks not to possess, but to understand, not to control, but to elevate. Love, then, is not the enemy of reason, but its greatest ally, for love compels us to seek truth beyond ourselves." The student, enlightened, bows and whispers, "Then love is wisdom itself." Socrates smiles, "Yes, my friend. To love wisely is to know the highest truth, and to know the highest truth is to be free." Socrates, known for his method of questioning, would approach the concept of love not by providing a direct answer, but by guiding his audience through a thoughtful examination of its nature. He would begin by asking, "What is love?" rather than assuming a single definition. Through dialogue, he would challenge common assumptions, such as the idea that love is merely an emotion or a desire for another person. He would encourage his listeners to distinguish between different forms of love: love rooted in physical attraction, love driven by personal gain, and love that seeks a deeper truth. By peeling away superficial understandings, Socrates would lead his audience to see love not as a fleeting passion, but as a force connected to wisdom and self-improvement. For Socrates, love was not about possession or attachment, but about an ongoing pursuit of something greater than oneself. In this way, he would frame love as a journey toward enlightenment, rather than a weakness that blinds or controls. Socrates would make a clear distinction between mere desire and true love, emphasizing that while desire is often tied to fleeting emotions and physical attraction, true love aspires to something higher. Desire, when left unchecked, can enslave a person, leading them to act irrationally in pursuit of temporary pleasure. It is driven by a need to possess, to satisfy personal cravings, and to seek fulfillment in external things. This kind of love is unstable, as it depends on circumstances that are beyond one's control. Beauty fades, passions cool, and desires shift. In contrast, true love is not about possession, but about elevation. It seeks the good of the other and the growth of the self. Instead of being controlled by impulses, a person guided by true love strives for wisdom, virtue, and understanding. Socrates would argue that love, when rightly directed, can lead one to knowledge, self-awareness, and even the divine. It encourages an individual to rise above selfish wants and focus on something greater, truth, beauty, and goodness that exist beyond the material world. Thus, love is not inherently a weakness, but it becomes one when it is reduced to mere desire. When cultivated with wisdom, however, it becomes a powerful force that elevates the soul. Socrates believed that true love is not simply about personal pleasure or temporary satisfaction, but is a pursuit of the highest forms of truth, goodness, and beauty. He would argue that those who see love merely as a source of pleasure misunderstand its deeper purpose. Love, when properly understood, is not about satisfying desires in the moment, but about striving for something greater, something beyond the physical world. It is a force that draws the soul toward wisdom and virtue, rather than trapping it in fleeting emotions. To illustrate this, Socrates might ask his students, what is it that we truly love when we love someone? If love were only about physical attraction, it would fade as beauty withers with time. But if love is about seeking what is truly good in another person, their wisdom, their kindness, their character, then love becomes something enduring and transformative. It leads both the lover and the beloved toward a higher state of being. This idea is later developed by his student Plato in the concept of the ladder of love, where one begins by appreciating physical beauty, but gradually ascends to an understanding of beauty itself, something eternal and unchanging. In this way, Socrates presents love as a guide toward enlightenment. It is not a weakness that blinds us, but a force that compels us to seek deeper meaning in life. Those who love wisely do not chase after temporary pleasures but pursue what is good, noble, and everlasting. True love is not about taking from another, it is about uplifting, learning, and moving toward the ultimate truth. Socrates saw love not as a mere emotion, but as a force that propels the soul toward wisdom. The very word philosophy comes from the Greek words philo, love, and sophia, wisdom, meaning love of wisdom. This connection suggests that the pursuit of knowledge is at its core an act of love. Socrates would argue that true love is not about possession or indulgence, but about a deep yearning for truth, understanding, and self-improvement. When one truly loves wisdom, they are not content with ignorance or illusion. They seek knowledge that elevates the soul and brings them closer to the essence of what is real and good. For Socrates, love and wisdom are inseparable because love fuels the desire to learn and grow. He would often engage in dialogue with others, not to assert his own knowledge, but to awaken a love of wisdom in his students. He believed that wisdom begins with recognizing one's own ignorance, and love plays a key role in this realization. When a person deeply loves wisdom, they are humble enough to admit what they do not know, and passionate enough to seek the truth. This relentless pursuit of wisdom, driven by love, leads one to a more virtuous and enlightened life. Furthermore, Socrates would likely argue that love directed toward material things or fleeting pleasures leads to stagnation, whereas love directed toward wisdom leads to transformation. Just as a lover longs for their beloved, a philosopher longs for truth, justice, and moral goodness. This kind of love does not weaken a person, rather it strengthens them, providing clarity, purpose, and a deeper understanding of life. In this way, love is not only a path to wisdom, it is the very essence of wisdom itself. Socrates, through his dialogues and teachings, often made a distinction between two kinds of love, the love of the body and the love of the soul. The love of the body is based on physical attraction, desire, and temporary pleasure. It is fleeting and possessive, often leading to jealousy, attachment, and suffering. This kind of love is rooted in the senses and is bound by time. It fades as youth and beauty diminish, and it depends on external factors that are beyond one's control. Because it is driven by personal gratification, it can lead to irrational behavior, making people slaves to their passions rather than masters of themselves. In contrast, the love of the soul is deeper, eternal, and enlightening. It is not concerned with external appearances, but with inner virtues such as wisdom, kindness, and moral excellence. This love seeks not to possess, but to nurture, not to control but to understand. The love of the soul elevates both the lover and the beloved, guiding them towards self-improvement and the pursuit of truth. Unlike the love of the body, which fades with time, the love of the soul only grows stronger as one gains wisdom and insight. Socrates would argue that true love must transcend physical attraction and evolve into something greater. He would ask, if beauty is what you love, then what happens when beauty fades? Does love disappear with it? This question forces one to reflect on the nature of their affections. If love is based on something deeper, on the goodness and wisdom of the soul, then it remains unshaken by time and circumstance. Plato, Socrates' student, later expanded on this idea in the Symposium, describing love as a ladder that begins with physical attraction, but gradually ascends to the appreciation of pure beauty and ultimate truth. The highest form of love, according to Socrates, is one that inspires both the lover and the beloved to grow intellectually and morally. It is a love that does not weaken the mind, but strengthens it, leading to enlightenment and the pursuit of the divine. Thus, while the love of the body is temporary and self-serving, the love of the soul is eternal and transformative, guiding one toward the highest wisdom. Socrates would argue that love, when rightly understood and directed, is not a weakness but a source of great strength. Many believe that love makes people vulnerable, irrational, or even powerless. They see it as something that blinds reason and leaves one at the mercy of emotions. However, Socrates would challenge this view by asking, is it truly love that weakens a person, or is it the misunderstanding of love? He would guide his students to see that love, when based on mere desire or attachment, can indeed lead to suffering and dependence. But when love is directed toward wisdom, virtue, and the pursuit of truth, it strengthens the soul rather than weakening it. True love, according to Socrates, is a force that inspires growth. It does not enslave a person to their passions, but liberates them by motivating them to become better. Love pushes individuals beyond selfish desires, encouraging them to seek something greater than themselves. Whether it is the love of wisdom, the love of justice, or the love of a virtuous companion, it serves as a guiding force that leads to self-improvement. Socrates believed that love fuels the desire to know, to learn, and to refine one's character. Instead of making a person weak, it gives them purpose and direction. Moreover, Socrates would argue that those who fear love as a weakness often confuse it with attachment or obsession. He would ask, is the warrior weak because he loves honor? Is the philosopher weak because he loves wisdom? On the contrary, it is love that drives people to excel, to endure hardships, and to overcome obstacles. A person who loves deeply, not out of selfish need, but out of a genuine appreciation for goodness, becomes stronger in character and spirit. Love, when grounded in reason and virtue, becomes a powerful force for transformation, elevating the soul rather than diminishing it. Thus, Socrates would conclude that love is not the enemy of reason, nor is it a weakness that makes people fragile. Instead, it is the highest motivation for growth, pushing individuals toward excellence. When properly understood and cultivated, love is not something that weakens, it is the very thing that gives strength to the soul. Socrates would argue that true love is not about possession or control, but about liberation. Many people mistakenly believe that love binds individuals together in a way that restricts their freedom. They fear that to love deeply means to lose independence, to become vulnerable, or to be at the mercy of another. However, Socrates would challenge this assumption, asking, is love truly a chain, or is it the misunderstanding of love that binds us? He would guide his students to see that love, when properly understood, does not imprison the soul, it sets it free. True love is not about dominating or possessing another person. It does not seek to control their thoughts, actions or choices. Instead, it seeks to understand, to nurture, and to inspire. Love in its highest form allows both the lover and the beloved to grow into their fullest potential. It is not about demanding or clinging, but about encouraging and uplifting. When love is guided by wisdom, it does not lead to jealousy or insecurity, but to trust and mutual respect. A person who truly loves another does not seek to hold them back, but to help them become their best self. Socrates would likely compare love to the pursuit of knowledge. Just as a philosopher does not wish to possess wisdom, but to journey toward it, a person who loves truly does not wish to possess another, but to walk alongside them in growth. In this way, love is a path to freedom, rather than confinement. It frees individuals from selfishness, from the fear of loss, and from the illusion that happiness comes from ownership. Furthermore, Socrates would argue that the love of wisdom, the highest form of love, is the ultimate freedom. A mind that loves truth is not confined by ignorance, and a soul that loves virtue is not enslaved by base desires. Love, when properly directed, does not weaken autonomy, but strengthens it. It allows people to rise above their limitations, to transcend the material world, and to connect with something eternal. Thus, Socrates would conclude that love, far from being a chain, is the key to true liberation. It is not about attachment, but about enlightenment. It does not seek to bind, but to expand. Love that is based on wisdom is not a trap. It is the greatest force that allows the soul to soar. Plato, a devoted student of Socrates, expanded on his teacher's ideas about love in one of his most famous works, the Symposium. In this philosophical dialogue, Plato presents the idea of the ladder of love, a concept that describes love as an evolving journey from physical attraction to the highest form of wisdom. This idea builds on Socratic thought by suggesting that love is not static or confined to physical desire, but is instead a powerful force that can elevate the soul toward ultimate truth and enlightenment. The ladder of love, as described in the Symposium, begins with an individual being drawn to physical beauty. At this stage, love is primarily based on attraction and desire, much like the love of the body that Socrates warned could be fleeting and possessive. However, if a person is guided by reason and wisdom, they will come to realize that beauty is not just something found in one person, but is present in many forms. They will begin to appreciate beauty in a broader sense, seeing it in all people, in art, and in nature. As one ascends further up the ladder, love shifts from the physical to the intellectual. The lover starts to admire, not just external beauty, but also the beauty of the mind and soul. They seek companionship that is based on shared wisdom, virtue and knowledge. This stage of love moves beyond mere pleasure and into the realm of personal and moral growth. Instead of being consumed by desire, love becomes a source of inspiration, pushing individuals to refine their character and pursue truth. The final and highest stage of love in Plato's ladder of love is the love of the form of beauty, an eternal, unchanging ideal of beauty that transcends the physical world. At this level, love is no longer directed toward individual people or things, but toward absolute truth and divine wisdom. This is where love reaches its highest purpose. It becomes a path to enlightenment, guiding the soul toward an understanding of the pure and eternal. In this stage, love is not about wanting or possessing, but about contemplating the very essence of beauty, truth, and goodness. Plato's extension of Socratic thought in the Symposium reinforces the idea that love is not a weakness, but a transformative force. It teaches that love is most valuable when it is directed toward wisdom and self-improvement. Instead of being trapped by desire, those who ascend the ladder of love gain freedom, knowledge, and a deeper connection with the eternal truths of the universe. Through this philosophy, Plato shows that love is not just an emotion, but a powerful tool for spiritual and intellectual growth, echoing Socrates' belief that love, when properly understood, is the highest form of wisdom. Socrates believed that self-knowledge was the foundation of wisdom, famously stating, "Know thyself." He argued that ignorance of oneself was the greatest obstacle to living a virtuous and meaningful life. True wisdom, in his view, was not about accumulating external knowledge, but about deeply understanding one's own nature, one's desires, weaknesses, strengths and purpose. He saw love as a powerful tool in this journey of self-discovery, for love, when rightly understood, serves as a mirror that reveals who we truly are. When a person loves deeply and authentically, they are confronted with their own emotions, fears and desires. Love has a way of exposing not only our strengths, but also our insecurities and attachments. It forces us to question why we love, what we seek in others, and whether our love is driven by selfish need or by a genuine desire for growth. Through this process, love becomes a form of self-examination, much like Socratic questioning, which challenges individuals to reflect on their true motives and values. Socrates would argue that true love does not blind a person, but awakens them. If one approaches love with wisdom, it becomes a guide toward greater self-awareness. For example, if someone finds themselves consumed by jealousy or possessiveness in love, Socrates would encourage them to ask, "Why do I feel this way? Is it love that causes this suffering, or is it my own insecurity?" By engaging in this form of self-inquiry, love becomes a means of inner transformation. Rather than weakening a person, it strengthens them by revealing the areas in which they need to grow. Furthermore, Socrates would emphasize that the highest form of love is not about seeking validation from others, but about striving to become the best version of oneself. Love that is rooted in wisdom inspires both the lover and the beloved to cultivate virtue, knowledge and self-improvement. In this sense, love does not merely bring pleasure or companionship, it serves as a profound teacher, guiding individuals toward a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Ultimately, Socrates would conclude that love and self-knowledge are inseparable. To truly love another, one must first know oneself, and to truly know oneself, one must be willing to engage with love as a tool for introspection and growth. Love, when directed toward wisdom and virtue, does not make a person weak or dependent, it empowers them, leading them to the highest form of enlightenment and self-mastery. Socrates viewed love not merely as an earthly emotion, but as a divine force that has the power to elevate the soul toward ultimate truth. In his philosophical discussions, he often led his students to see love as more than just desire or attachment. Rather, it was a guiding force that could lift the human spirit beyond the material world and toward the eternal. Love, when properly understood, was not something that trapped a person in fleeting emotions, but something that connected them to the divine. Building on Socrates' ideas, Plato later developed this concept in the Symposium, where he describes love as a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical. In this dialogue, the philosopher Diotima explains that love is not an end in itself, but a path leading to higher wisdom. At its most basic level, love begins with physical attraction, but as one matures in understanding, they realize that beauty and love exist beyond the physical. They begin to appreciate the beauty of ideas, virtue, and ultimately, the eternal form of beauty, the pure and unchanging essence of all that is beautiful. Socrates would argue that this highest form of love is what draws the soul closer to the divine. It is through love that individuals are inspired to seek wisdom, goodness and truth. Love, in this sense, is not merely an emotion, but an inner force that compels one to move beyond the superficial toward a deeper understanding of reality. It is what fuels the philosopher's quest for knowledge, the artist's search for beauty, and the hero's commitment to justice. Instead of being a weakness, love is a divine power that connects the mortal world to the eternal. Moreover, Socrates might question whether anything truly great can be achieved without love. The love of truth leads to wisdom, the love of justice leads to righteousness, the love of beauty leads to creativity and inspiration. In all its highest forms, love acts as a force that propels individuals beyond their limitations and into a greater understanding of the universe. Those who love wisely do not cling to what is temporary, but seek what is everlasting. In this way, love does not diminish the soul, it expands it. Thus for Socrates, love is not just a personal experience, but a universal principle that links the human spirit to the divine. It is the force that drives people to seek meaning, to strive for greatness, and to connect with something beyond themselves. When love is directed toward truth and wisdom, it becomes a sacred power, leading the soul toward enlightenment and the eternal truths of the universe. Let us not mistake love for weakness, nor see it as a fleeting desire that blinds us. Instead, let us embrace love as the highest path to wisdom, as Socrates taught. True love is not about possession, but about growth. It is not about control, but about understanding. It is the force that lifts us beyond our limitations, guiding us toward truth, virtue, and enlightenment. If we choose to love wisely, not just with our hearts, but with our minds and souls, we unlock the greatest strength within us. So let us rise, let us seek wisdom, and let us love in a way that transforms us and the world around us. For in love, rightly understood, we find not only ourselves, but the eternal truths that make life meaningful.